What's up? What's up? The beautiful thing about having insomnia is you can do a live stream. And I am going to do one and review. Ta-da! That's a record player right there that I will be using this. Kiss has a series of releases live off the Soundboard. I think they've done a few from the classic lineup, with Ace and Peter. And this one's kind of rare because it is Kiss live from Poughkeepsie, New York. And you might say to yourself, what is so rare about Kiss playing a concert in Poughkeepsie, New York? Well, this was 1984. And as you know, Kiss was in a bit of turmoil with their lead guitar player slot. They had gone from, Ace Frehley. They were having troubles with Ace for a while, and Peter. Probably starting around the solo album era. When they released 4 solo albums on the same day. And I don't think any band has done that since. Now, there's a little bit of controversy around those albums because Gene has always said they sold platinum. All 4 sold individually 1 million copies. But a little fudging there, a little Donald Trump-like budging. They shipped platinum. They did not sell platinum. So, but Ace had probably the best received album. And it was kind of cool how they did it. All 4 band members took a different approach. I think Gene was like, hey, look how many celebrities I can get to play on my album. Paul's was probably the most Kiss-like of the 4. Like Paul's album would have made a great Kiss album. Ace's was, you could tell he was like, hey, I'm finally out of my shell. I'm not constrained by Gene and Paul. And then Peter's was probably the most true to himself. Like he was like, hey, I'm a jazz drummer. I'm a jazz influence drummer. I'm gonna give you my soppy ballads and try and show you my best Gene Krupa. But that was not really what the fans wanted, to be frank. They wanted probably a combo of what Gene, Paul, and Ace were offering. So I believe Peter's was the poorer selling of all the 4 albums. But I think because Ace's was so well received that he thought, I don't really need Kiss. And then with Dynasty came their probably initial problems with Peter. I think Peter thought, I don't need Kiss. Now, you would have thought that Peter would have been a little more humbled after the semi-poor performance of his solo album, but he left in 1980. Of course, that's when Eric Carr came in. Rest in peace. And then Ace left after the recording of the Elder album. And this comes where the turmoil for the lead guitar player slot comes in because I don't think any major band of Kiss's level has ever uh, gone through what they went through. Where one album it was Ace, The Elder, uh, Creatures of the Night. I don't even think Gene and Paul to this day don't really know who was on lead guitar on that album. Um, Vinnie Vincent, I think, played on 3 songs. I think, Steve Ferris played on a few. There's rumors this guy from Mr. played on a song. So it was just very, it's kinda like Guns N' Roses' Chinese Democracy. It was a real clusterfuck. And then Vinny played on "Lick It Up," obviously. Mark St. John played on Heaven, Animalize, and then Bruce Kulick came in to play on Asylum to um, Psycho Circus. So, like I said, I don't think any band I've ever known of Kiss's notoriety has had 4 different lead guitar players on 4 consecutive albums. But this is a rare album because it is the only known semi fully recorded let's see uh, album with Mark St. John on it. Um, he played, I think, 1.5 concerts, and then he was, you know, depending on who you ask, he was either fired or he left because he had writer's syndrome, which affects the joints in your hands and they balloon up. And it's basically arthritis, I guess, from what I understand. But the weird thing with that was when he left Kiss, 2 years later, he was in the band White Tiger. So, I talked to a few friends of mine who were like, "Oh yeah, he's a guitar player. Like he's doing like Van Halen and Randy Rhoads, double taps and all that stuff." And I think someone asked Paul once what he thought of him live, and he's like, Paul said something to the effect of, "I remember looking over to my left, and he's doing all the tapping and whammy bar stuff," and Paul was like, I don't know if this guy's going to work out for us." So there is kind of a cool picture you can search for it online. Um, of they played one concert where Bruce Kulick played and Mark St. John played about, I don't know, 5 or 6 songs, but then I guess they all came out at the end. So you have Bruce Kulick, Mark St. John, Gene Paul, um, and obviously Eric Carr on drums. So kind of, I think it's the only time in Kiss's 50-year history that they ever had a 2 guitar attack, if you will. Um, but that did not last very long. So this concert happened November 28th, 1984, um, to promote the Animalize album. And, I was very eager I first didn't hear it on record. I first heard it on Spotify. And I'm not a musician. I don't play guitar. So I can't really comment on the technical talk that some of my guitar playing friends can, but I'll say to my fans' ear, uh, Mark to me sounded like a more constrained Vinny. He came to the band through Grover Jackson, the creator of Jackson Guitars, and it's not been confirmed, but it's been rumored that Mark St. John took guitar lessons from Randy Rhoads. and it is who also was sponsored by Jackson Guitar. Um, but you could definitely hear an influence of Randy Rhoads and Mark St. John's playing. Um, so, he's probably the least talked about guitar player in Kiss just because he was literally only there for, I think, 8 months. The recording of Animalize was kind of in a weird time frame for Kiss because, I think Gene was off doing Runaway with Tom Selleck and Miami Vice in that time frame, so he was kind of absent from the recordings. The rumors are that the Plasmatics bass player Jean Beauvoir was essentially the bass player on the album. It's kind of hard because he's under I think, a gag order. Probably, and I've seen this before with bands I'm familiar with and that I actually know. Ghost musicians aren't really allowed to say they were on the album, or they can get in trouble. And then Paul, I think, he was dating someone at the time, so he was kind of checked out. One of probably the only times that he was semi checked out. So it's rumored that a lot of the guitar parts that Mark St. John recorded were literally with just him and the sound engineer in the studio, and Paul or Gene would call and say, "Hey, this is what we want. This is what we need." Uh, which had to be a little nerve wracking for him, just because he probably wasn't really sure of what they actually wanted. But I like this, and I think Bruce Kulick did the solo. I don't know if it was the whole song, but I think he did the solo to "Lonely as the Hunter." So Mark St. John's not even on the whole album, but he's on most of it, and that's good enough for me. Because, like I said, "Heaven's on Fire" is one of my favorite sounding Kiss albums from a guitar perspective. I also like "Thrills in the Night," which I believe was the second video released for Animalize. Now, if you go back and listen to Animalize, I'm not going to lie to you, the lyrics don't necessarily hold up. It's a very 80s sexualized vibe on the album. I mean, Gene's lyrics are pretty cringe-worthy when you go back and listen to them. I definitely couldn't make it like that in the Me Too era. Let's just say that. So, but we start with side one. That's if you get the record, And I love this is the Comedy Store record player. My name is right there. So it's kind of an honor to have my name on that. And it was a surprise when it was gifted to me. And so laser disc and CDs and all kinds of stuff like that. You actually, this is a pretty clean sounding way to listen to a record from the 80s is by vinyl. So the first song is Detroit Rock City. And, it's definitely a sped up version of the song. I mean, with Eric Carr, he was just a quicker drummer than Peter. And obviously, Mark St. John plays a lot faster than Ace. Um, and that was always the knock on Vinny and Mark, was that they just played the songs too fast, too up tempo. What up? What up? Woo woo! Pooter in the house, doing a review of the Kiss album live off the Soundboard, the only known recording with Mark St. John on it. So thank you, Pooter. I know this is a very strange time to do this. It is right now 1:30 in the morning my time. So you know, I couldn't sleep, so why not? Um, so you definitely know when you put on a Vinny or a Mark album that's not Ace. Bruce was very good at kind of bridging the two styles. So when Bruce played Heaven's on Fire or Lick It Up, It sounded almost like Vinny or Mark, whereas on the reunion tours and the farewell tours and all the other tours, it was clear that Ace, obviously he could play the song, but it was a little more muddier to my ears. So, and the second song was Cold Gin. Once again, it's definitely a faster version of the song. Uh, if you will not like this album, especially the live version of it, where I don't know if Mark was completely faithful to the Ace solos. So they do sound a little different. Some people like that, some people don't. Some people like, I want to hear Detroit Rock City has Ace played it, but I don't want to say it's not possible for Mark St. Ace, but he was just much more technical player than Ace. So it sounds different. Now, the next few songs, Creatures of the Night, um, Mark played closest in style to Vinny, so it's a pretty faithful recording of how Vinny did it. And then here's one of two funny things about this album. The next song, Fits Like a Glove. It kind of cuts off halfway in the middle. Now, Kiss has said they weren't recording the concert; they just taped it just to have it. So the instrumental part of "Fits Like a Glove" just goes into loop mode, and it just kind of fades off. And it's like only Kiss would release a live album where a song just cuts off halfway through. But who's complaining? Me. And who bought it? Me. So that's interesting too, because if you're familiar with the song, you're like, wait a minute, where are the lyrics? um, about halfway through. And then the next song is Heaven's on Fire. Obviously, Mark played the song. So it sounds very cool, I guess, if you're a Mark St. John fan. And then that goes into his guitar solo, which, it's an 80s guitar solo. I mean, it's like obviously it's like we know you can play the guitar. But so I don't think that too many people are going to play the guitar solo over and over again. And then Under the Gun, um, obviously Mark played on that originally. So it's if you like Animalize, you'll like that song. And then War Machine is the next song. And like I said, it sounds pretty good given that Vinny and Mark's styles were pretty similar. Um, and that leads into the drum solo, which I always enjoyed Eric Carr's drum solo. I still remember. Hold on. I still remember um, his drum solo from the Hot in the Shade tour, which was pretty awesome visually. And then we go into, and I made a mistake. I made a mistake. Fits Like a Glove was a complete song. My bad. My bad. Fits Like a Glove. Song 4, side 1 was a complete song. The incomplete song was Young and Wasted. I knew it was a Eric Carr song. So Young and Wasted, which is song 1 on side 3, is the one that goes on loop after the initial vocals. Um, so my bad, my bad. I know the fans like to jump on me for any mistakes, so I'm trying to correct my mistake before the two people watching jump on me. And then Young and Wasted goes right into the bass solo. Um, Gene's bass solos are, they're simple, but he's not John Entwistle, but he's also not trying to be. So I you know, they're okay. I mean, if I was at this concert, this would be where I would go to the bathroom break. Not because I don't like Gene's bass playing. I just, you gotta pee, and you gotta go. And then the bass solo goes right into "I Love It Loud," which I think Vinny played on Creatures of the Night. So once again, um, the song sounds very 80s because Mark and Vinny have similar playing styles. So I enjoyed it. And then we go into I Still Love You, which is also on Creatures of the Night. So it's a very 80s based album. Uh, I'm sure Gene and Paul recognized when they did record with Ace uh, how it sounded, and then I'm sure when they recorded with Mark, rehearsals or whatnot, I was like, okay, he doesn't play like Ace, so let's do a lot of '80s songs. Um, and then Love Gun was the next song, kind of a funny. Paul, this is prime Paul Stanley when he was doing the, I went to the doctor the other day and she stuck her hand down my pants and said, Mr. Stanley, how did you get that rifle through customs? I said, honey, that ain't no rifle. That's my love gun. I'm like, there's kids in this crowd. What are you talking about? And then a sped up version of Black Diamond. Uh, which was I love Eric Carr's vocals, so I enjoy it, but it's definitely it's like someone had fast forward and recorded. And then kind of this might be the rarest song Kiss has ever recorded. Um, definitely on a live album, and it's a real quick one. Oh Susanna, oh Susanna, that oh Susanna. So it's very quick too. And by the way, when right before, it's one of my favorite Paul Stanley lines. Right before they go into Black Diamond, apparently someone threw like a training bra um, on the stage, and Paul Stanley picked it up and was like, "Now this ain't the biggest bra in the world, but I tell you, I'd like to stick my tongue on whatever was in it." It's like, what are you talking about? So it's kind of cool to hear Kiss play like a country song, and they don't play the whole song, but it's just kind of funny to hear Kiss, and the song kind of sounds like, it's like it's kind of funny. And then Paul goes into an epic uh, intro to "Lick It Up," talking about every night I go to bed. And I thank God for women who have tongues. Like, it was just, like, some really overly, sexual, uh, and then every night they go to bed praying that I have a tongue and I know how to use it. It's just like, "Oh, this is too much for me, man." And then the, last song is "Rock and Roll All Night," which is another, incompleted song. I mean, only Kiss would release a live album with 2 incomplete songs. But I could kinda understand why they did it in this case because, um, this is really the only full recording of a Mark St. John concert, and the song just kinda trails off. Thankfully, they get in Mark St. John's solo, um, which is, absolutely does not sound like Ace's. It's a very sped up version of, Ace's solo. But it's, enjoyable. I would say all in all, I would rate this record. If you're a fan of the classic Kiss lineup, you're probably not going to like this album just because let me see, the original Kiss song or the OG classic Kiss songs, Detroit Rock City, Cold Gin, Love Gun, Black Diamond, and Rock and Roll All Night. They are absolutely sped up and sound like an updated version of the original version. But 1984, and I'll say 83 as well to include Vinny's full tenure. You have to look at the top guitar players of that time frame. You had Mick Mars from Motley Crue. You had Warren DeMartini and Robin Crosby from Rat. You had Jakey Lee, who was a full-time Ozzy Osbourne member. Obviously Randy Rhoads passed in '82, but I will include him in this discussion. You had Brad Gillis and Jeff Watson and Night Ranger. You had what was it KK Downing and Glenn Tipton. Judas Priest. Uh, so there's and Metallica was just spreading their wings. Um, and so there was obviously Van Halen. Steve Vai was just kind of getting going. Steve Stevens. Um, so speaking of Steve Stevens, here's my Steve Stevens ray gun he sent me. Let me turn off the lights for more effect. Oh, we'll do this. We'll turn off the rat light. There we go. So, um, that's that was the kind of style, guitar sounding wise that was going on. So, if you're a fan of that era, then I think you will like this album. Um, Kiss is kind of a very, they're a tough band to grade certain albums on because there's the classic lineup, there's the '80s lineup, the reunion lineup, and now what's going on now with Kiss being the Jewish Menudo, with Tommy Thayer as Ace and Eric Singer as Peter Criss. Um, that's a little too bright. It's a little, yeah, there we go. So it's, if you're a fan of one certain era, you're kind of like, the next era, if they are playing similar material. Like if you like Peter and Ace's Detroit Rock City, you probably won't like Mark St. John and Eric Carr's sped up tempo version, or Vinny and Eric Carr's version. Uh, but if you grew up past the expiration date of the original lineup, and you grew up, with like the first Kiss album I remember listening to was Alive too, because I just remember looking at Gene's picture and going, "Wow, man, that looks like the fucking devil." Um, so I grew up with classic Kiss, but the first Kiss album I ever bought was Lick It Up. And when I say I bought, I mean my dad gave me $20 to buy it. I went to what was it, the Warehouse in Westwood, Tower Records competition, but we won't talk about that. I think now it's a hub for Jehovah Witness, which is really sad because I loved going to Westwood to buy albums and movies. And now I walked Lois there a couple, maybe a month or two ago, and it was so sad to go to Westwood. And like I would say 50% of the movie theaters I went to are either a Whole Foods or condo complexes. And like the Tower Records there is like, I think it's an abandoned building right now. Um, so, uh, I'm kind of a hybrid fan of, I respect the original lineup, but I guess I mean, the first era where I really got into Kiss was the mid '80s lineup. Yes, Pooter, Rat is, Rat should have been bigger, but I don't think that necessarily they were the best band live. I think people kind of forget how big they were. I mean, Round and Round, I think sold 3.5 or 4 million records, which was a big deal back then. And I just think they took Bon Jovi out for their first tour, which is kind of cool because when I saw Bon Jovi, I think in the early '90s, no, maybe it was mid '90s, '94, '95, at the Forum Arcade. Stephen Pearcy's band was the opening act, along with Keanu Reeves' Dog Star. So it's Bon Jovi paying it back. But then Rat also took out Poison, um, a couple years later, and Rat was a pretty big band in '86, and then Poison just kind of lapped them, and um, that's kind of the initial downfall of Rat. The first two albums were really good. Third album was decent, and then I believe they kind of lost their way with Detonator when they brought in Desmond Child to basically, and I get why they brought in Desmond Child, who's definitely the most successful songwriter of that era. You know, hey, give us our Slippery When Wet, and it was a good album, but it didn't quite reach the numbers that Slippery When Wet did. And but I still say if you get the Rad album 8191, their greatest hits, it's not a lot of filler on it. It's a really good greatest hits album. I mean, I like, not many people will probably say this, but I like Rat's catalog more than Motley Crue's. But Motley Crue, they just had this amazing stage show, and when Vince Neil was on, he was a great front man. And Nicky was a great front man, and obviously Tommy Lee's the most popular guy in the band to this day. So and then just Rat kind of disintegrated, and I agree with Stephen Piercy when I think when Robin Crosby died, you know, you were never really gonna. Although they did play with four of the five original members for a couple years, with Carlos Cavazo filling in for Robin Crosby from Quiet Riot, and he was a great choice to fill in for Robin Crosby because I think he recognized, okay, this is DeMartini's band. I'll just do Crosby's parts faithfully, and they had good chemistry. I mean, I'm sure they knew each other through back in the day, but yeah, Rat. I mean, they still tour. Well, it's really Piercy touring. I think he calls his group the Rat Bastards, and it's funny. The bass player in the Rat Bastards, um, I think, was the original bass player in Mickey Rat, Matt Thorne. Um, so it's kind of cool to see Steven and him still be friends through all these years. But yeah, so my final thoughts on Kiss live off the Soundboard 1984 from Poughkeepsie, New York is, if you're a new fan of Kiss, I'm not sure if you'll like it. If you're an OG fan of Kiss, I'm not sure if you'll like it. But if you're in that middle spot, like I am, like you kind of grew up with the '80s Kiss, think you'll like it. It's like a modern, updated take on the classic songs, um, but get used to the speed. So I'm going to try and do more of these. Not a lot of people listening to this outside of my buddy Pooter, but I do thank you, Pooter, for listening. I just thought, right now it's almost 2 a.m. in Los Angeles. So, I'm experimenting. You know, I did my AEW review today at 11 a.m. and I had a decent amount of people watching. Um, and then I might try tomorrow to do one 4 or 5 p.m. on a Friday night. Just see what that does, and then maybe I'll do one on Saturday. Obviously with these things you got to kind of experiment because the algorithm on YouTube, it's a moving target. But I'm gonna keep trying because I do enjoy doing these. Even tonight, I've talked for 35 minutes by myself about something I like. So I think where the party really gets started is when there's 20 or so people in chat. Hopefully more than that one day. Uh, oh, thank you, Puda, very much. Yeah, Drew Hanna was the singer from Wild Side. And they got their problem, Pooter, was they just got there too late to the party. I think Under the Influence, which was their major record, release, and I wanna say it was on Atlantic. I might be off on that. Um, 91, 92. I think. Um, it just, grunge had kinda slowly started taking over, and Guns N' Roses was really at the height of their fame, in that, time frame, and Guns N' Roses certainly was not grunge, but they were definitely heavier than, any band playing outside of Metallica. So a group like Wildside, their look was kinda confusing, because they were all glam metal guys, but, I think for Under the Influence, they almost started to them and Trickster were like, "Okay, we're glam metal guys, but, we gotta kind of dress grungy," and so it just didn't work, but the songs on Wildside's debut album are really good. There's actually a song, um, I forget the song. It might be "Just Another Night," um, that Paul Stanley helped write. So there is some Kiss, related, subject matter there. I think Drew, in the episode you just listened to, talked about going to Paul Stanley's house, and he opens up the door and he's just in a robe. Um, so, by the way, speaking of Paul Stanley, last Friday I saw Kiss's final LA show, and the opening band was Amber Wild, and it's a really good band, and Paul Stanley's son Evan is the lead singer. So check them out. They're really good, actually. Because when I thought, oh, it's Paul Stanley's kids band, I don't know about that. They're really good. And he's got a great stage presence. Like it's kind of like when I remember the first time I saw the Killers, I couldn't take my eyes off of Brandon Flowers, the singer. Uh, and I can't tell you why to this day. It just, I just was standing there watching him. This guy's amazing, and I had that same vibe with Evan Stanley. And maybe part of it's his body. He's really tall. Like I would guess he's around 6'4", and he's dressed impeccably. So, he gets it. You know, I'm sure he got that from his dad. Make an impression. I'm sure Gene said, "Listen, kid, the second you walk on stage, you're performing. So get it together." Um, so check them out. I did a review of the concert last week, so if you haven't listened to that, check it out. It's a honest review, and that's about it. 2 a.m. on a Friday morning. If you have any questions before I leave, ask now. And I guess I'm just really talking to Pooter, but Pooter, I appreciate your support. I wish I could. I'm doing this on my iMac. Well, I'll show you this. Peter, you deserve it. This is a framed Mark St. John Rampage amp ad. So this is what Mark St. John looked like when he was in Kiss. And that's about it. So you know the deal, Pooter, but if you could share this, if you liked it, and then follow me everywhere at Earl Skakel, EarlSkakel, Patreon, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. It's very easy to follow me. I'm most active on Instagram and YouTube, and I tweet out some jokes on Twitter, just to and TikTok as well. I'm just not a giant fan of TikTok. And I'm not bad mouthing it. I'm just not very good at it, to be honest with you. Um, so, and if you're local in Los Angeles, is this Saturday night? DM me on Instagram. I'm at the Comedy Store closing out the world famous main room, the most famous stage in the country. I go on, I think 12:15, but because everyone runs the light and certain unnamed performers obliterate the light, I will probably be going on around 12:45. But on the opposite end of that, sometimes people don't show up, so I actually get to go on around the scheduled time. Um, and it's the best club on earth. So I hope you guys, if you let me know um, when you're coming, I'll make sure to give you the VIP tour after. You just have to be over 21. And but the people ask me all the time what the best nights are. Tuesday nights are fun, just to give you guys a little behind the curtain look at comedy and how it works. Most big name comics don't hit the road till Wednesday. So they come in Monday and Tuesday for auditions or, to take care of business. And then they hit the road on Wednesday. So they're all in town usually on Tuesday night. So they're all at the Comedy Store. You've got Roast Battle in the Belly Room, which is still a popular show. I'm not involved anymore in it, but people still seem to like it. And then the main room is usually sold out. So I think this past Tuesday night they had Santino and Bobby Lee do a show, and then Saturday nights obviously are the best night. Friday nights are good too, but people work and so the crowds are a little stiffer. But Saturday night, people have rested a little bit. They're in a good mood because usually went out to dinner or a movie or whatever. But the other nights are good. Well, Sunday nights are a hidden gem night there. Like I've had some really good times there on a Sunday night. And Thursday nights are good too. You've got the what's it, the OR and main room, and plus upstairs in the belly room. I believe it's the second longest running show outside of the Ding Dong show. Is I forget what they call it, Mixed Nuts, which is the black show essentially. But they do also have some white comics on it. But that's a very cool show to check out. Um, and they always have some interesting lineups. Mondays are fun if you just want to, uh, if you're if you're in town and it's your last night out. Um, what they have is the amateur night from like 7 to 8:30. It's comics who aren't passed at the Comedy Store, but they're all good for the most part. So they're trying to get in front of the booker. And then after that part of the show, you have, um, it's like an open mic for paid regulars like me and, Benji Aflalo and, any big name comic that wants to pop in on a Monday night, like Jimmy Carr's popped in on a Monday night. Um, and then you can go upstairs to the Ding Dong show with the great king of late night at the Comedy Store, Don Barris. Um, so there's not really a bad night. The Wednesday nights are good. There's always usually there's a fun show in the belly room. We've done some AEW wrestling shows. Uh, they're not wrestling shows, but they're comedy shows with AEW wrestlers on it. I think the last one we had Miro, Dolph Ziggler, his brother Ryan, Orange Cassidy, uh, the Gun Brothers, the great Sean Spears. So I was like a pig in heaven. I'm like, oh my god, pig in mud, which would be heaven for a pig. So, um, there's always something going on at the Comedy Store. Tonight, I'm actually, and when I say tonight, I mean Friday night. I'm actually doing a rare spot at the Ice House Comedy Club in Pasadena. It just reopened. The Lakers owner, I think Jim or Johnny Buss. I'm not sure which one. The Buss family owns the Ice House now. So, um, that's in the suburb of LA called Pasadena. And yeah, I mean, it's different. I mean, Bob, there was an old white dude who used to own it, Bob Fisher. and it was like Jay Leno would go there a lot. Gabriel Iglesias, George Lopez. It's probably the easiest room in the city. Like you could tape a special there. I think Tony Hinchcliffe did. I think that's where he filmed one shot. But the old main room at the Ice House, like you could be a beginning comic and kill in that room. Because I think that the crowds there at that time were just people who were not lazy, but they just didn't want to drive to Hollywood, and they all lived in, like, Glendale, Burbank, Pasadena, Arcadia, and it's really the only comedy club out in that direction, so, it's been remodeled. I mean, they spent a lot of money on the remodel, so, um, I'm there on a show tonight with the great Adam Ray and few others. It's kind of funny. It's an Ice House show, but I think 70% of the lineup are Comedy Store paid regulars. So it's like a comedy store night at the Ice House. So check that out if you're in Pasadena. Let me know. I doubt Pooter. I don't know where you live. I'm going to assume it's not Pasadena. Um, but thank you for listening again, Pooter. And yeah, if you guys ever, whatever your comedy needs are, let me know. Earl Skakel is here to serve you. I thank you guys for listening. I am literally nothing without my fan base. I have a small fan base, but you guys are mighty. Oh, what part of Canada before I leave? I'm a big hockey guy, so I just watched my beloved LA Kings lose to the Pittsburgh Penguins in overtime. Okay, yeah, Red Band's a good man. He's one of the few people I miss that went to Austin. Um, Edmonton. Okay. I was supposed to headline Edmonton right before the pandemic, comic strip in the Edmonton Mall. And it's funny, there's a restaurant named Earl's right across the mall from the comedy club. So, but hopefully I get to play there one time. Come as my guest. It's a great club. They also own several House of Comedies. I think there's a House of Comedy in Vancouver, Minnesota, Scottsdale, Arizona, which is where I did the Shane Doan roast, and I believe there's a new one in Plano, Texas. So it's not quite Austin, but it's a great, great owner, Tammy McPherson. And if you want to see me there, tweet at them, Instagram them. That's how it works. You know, I'll I'll break down the fourth wall of comedy for you guys a little bit more. Um, I'm not sure how much I mean this, but clubs don't really care if you're funny or not. Sounds crazy, right? You would think that would be the first thing they care about, but they just want people to come uh, and fill the seats. So if they think you're a draw, which is what they call filling the seats in the comedy world, they'll book you. That's why you see a lot of Instagram models and people with large social media followings, which most of them are fake. I have a friend of mine. He has 477,000 Instagram followers, and if you go on his page, let's say the average number of likes he gets on a picture is like 250. So it's clearly like if you have 477,000 followers and you post a picture, you should get minimum 5,000 likes. That's the standard. Um, like I have on Instagram, I think I have 11,700 followers. Not a, oh, we're getting some last minute people coming in. Muzzle of Bees and Tony White. Tony and Muzzle, if you guys are wondering what the hell I'm up so late, I was reviewing the Kiss vinyl live from Poughkeepsie. But let me get to Muzzle of Bees. My Blue Jackets in their rightful place in the cellar. I feel bad for the Blue Jackets. They just don't. I don't know. There's just something like the organization's cursed. Um, they go out, they sack up and get Johnny Gaudreau. I think Patrick Laine is a great player. Um, they drafted Pinelli, I think is his name. No, Facili, and he's going to be a great player. Um, unfortunately in hockey, with the salary cap and whatnot, you got to be bad for a couple years, and sometimes it takes more than that to kind of rebuild and retool and restock. So head up, though, head up. Uh, hey, Earl, Tom, ever going to come to Australia? It's funny. I've talked about that this year more than ever. To be honest with you, it just has to be financially well because that's obviously from Los Angeles, it's about a 16-hour flight, and Daddy don't fly, Coach. No, I'm just kidding. So I'd absolutely have to headline the gigs there, and I'm not sure, to be honest with you, if I'm a big enough name to headline Australian comedy clubs. I mean, I am known there for beating my very good friend Tom Ballard in roast battle, and he's a huge comic down there. But I don't know if that's enough to get me to play the bigger clubs. But once again, though, Tom and anyone else down there, if you want to see me in your hometown, whether it be Edmonton, Canada, or Australia, or hell, even Los Angeles, if you your Instagram the clubs, hey, when is this comic going to be here? It helps. I'm not ashamed to ask. Of course, I wish I was just a big enough name where I could just call the club. It's Earl Skakel. I'd like to play tonight. Okay. I'm a big Kiss fan. I mean, like I said, well, watch the early part of the video, Muzzle of Bees. I don't want to repeat too much of what I said now in the last hour, but I would say if you're a classic Kiss lineup fan, you won't like the album because it's the only album with Mark St. John on it, who was the guitar player on the album Animalize. So, because of Eric Carr on drums and Mark St. John on guitar, the solos are definitely sped up, and the songs in general are played at a faster up tempo. I liked the album, The Elder, as well, Tom. It's kind of a interesting time period in Kiss's life. Where I think they were like, "Hey, we're a good band." People. I'm sure it gets old for Gene and Paul at that time. People shitting on their musical ability, and they're like, "We're gonna make our Pink Floyd The Wall," which is basically what The Elder was. Now, a lot of people don't know this about The Elder is that if the album was a success, and it was not, um, they were gonna. I think there was like two sequels to the album they were gonna do. There was gonna be a movie based on The Elder, starring Chris Makepeace, who was the kid in Meatballs and My Bodyguard. Really good actor. But the album was, they didn't tour for the album, so it was kind of a flop. Um, but I liked it. Ace's song "Dark Light" I really like. But this is when Kiss was starting to lose their way big time. Peter Criss had left the band on after Unmasked, and he didn't really even play on Unmasked. Anton Fig, the drummer, did. Um, so I think they made him do the video for Shandy just to make fans believe he was still in the band. Then he left. So Eric Carr came in, I think, right before The Elder was recorded. So he had no say in the direction of the album. Ace was frustrated with Gene and Paul because he was getting outvoted on every idea 2-1, which was the great thing about having Peter in the band because Ace and Peter usually voted with each other on ideas, song titles, name of the album, whatnot, merchandise ideas. But now Gene and Paul were outvoting Ace 2-1. Eric Carr didn't really get a vote. He was just a salary musician, which was what Benny Vincent's problem was. He was just a salary musician. And Vinny was like, "Well, I just wrote 8 of the 10 songs on Lick It Up. I wanna get fucking paid." And I think Gene and Paul were like, "Hey, bro, we appreciate the help, but, we can get anyone to play guitar for this band." And if you believe Gene, they try to get Van Halen, but I don't know if I believe that. So yeah, I like the Elder too, Tom. We should shoulder to shoulder. We stand shoulder to shoulder with Tony. Good. See, I'm bringing Kiss fans together at 2 in the morning. Gene did do I had his solo down here a few years ago. Ace was support, and they did a few songs. I liked I. You know, it's probably my favorite song. If you really want to deep dive, look up Kiss. I guess you would put in YouTube Kiss Fridays. That Fridays was the show that was at the time basically competition for Saturday Night Live. It's where Michael Richards got his start, for better or worse. And if you've ever seen the Kiss home video exposed, remember the really funny guy who was the interviewer, Mark Blankfield? He was a cast member of Fridays. So, but they did 3 songs. I think they did "World Without Heroes," "I," and one other song. So yeah, I mean the other, I think through the years it's gotten a better rap than it did when it came out. And the album cover was kind of, it's just a hand on a knob, so it wasn't a very Kiss like cover. Um, but it's developed a cult following, I think, with Kiss fans. Um, and Bob Ezrin was the producer on it. And, he had produced like Hendrix and Zeppelin, and I think Kiss Alive. Uh, Even he's admitted that he was all fucked up on coke, and he kind of agrees with Ace now, because Ace was like, "Let's make rock and roll. What's with this concept album bullshit?" Um, but no, well, I mean, they might have played on Solid Gold, MOB, but I know on Fridays they did 3 songs. Definitely I, World Without Heroes, and there's one more, I'm forgetting. Um, but, every now and then I spin The Elder, or I should say I listen to it on Spotify. Um, the Elder would be cool to listen to on the record player, but, yeah, it's a misunderstood album, and I think Kiss at the time, to be honest with you, was struggling because if you look, I think The Elder came out in '81, maybe early '82, and that was just a horrible time frame for the band. They lost 2 of the 4 original members, and arguably Ace was the most popular member, so I think people were moving on to other bands. The Rats, the Motley Crues, the Metallicas, the Judas Priest, the Iron Maidens, the Ozzy Osbourne, the solo, you know, um, career was about to take off. And obviously was incredibly popular. So Dokken as well, like a couple of years later. But yeah, check out Rat and Roll. It's there's really not a lot of bad songs on it. There's some filler on it, but if you look at Kiss, and I think Alan Schwartzberg played drums on I because Eric Carr couldn't quite get what uh, Gene and Paul wanted. So I'm sure that was nerve wracking for him. Like, Jesus, they're already trying to replace me on the album. Um, but the Elder was just early '80s was a rough time in America for Kiss. But here's the funny thing: overseas, they were killing it. Like they played Rio in front of like 200,000 people or something. Uh, that's a really good concert if you can, and it's on YouTube if you look up Kiss Rio 1983. I think their last shows in makeup were on that tour. What I'd love to see is that first show they did with no makeup is in Lisbon, and there's some grainy footage of it, but I'd love to see a clean version, visually and audio, of that show because you could tell Kiss had a lot of energy. You could tell that Gene and Paul were like, "Finally, we got this fucking makeup off." And you could tell Ace and Eric Carr. I mean, Eric had been in the band now at that point for 3 years. Vinny maybe a year. maybe not even that, 6 months, and you could tell that they were happy too. So, a very interesting time for Kiss in that, regard. And then, Lick It Up kinda got them back in the mainstream. Um, I don't know, I mean, and then Animalized was a big I think the Animalized went 2,000,000. Um, and then, Asylum was a big, record for them. Tears Are Falling was constantly on MTV. And, I love Crazy Nights. Crazy Nights is probably my favorite Kiss album, which is insane, but, that's when I really was into music. And Crazy Nights is like Kiss's Slippery When Wet, not in terms of record sales, but, um, I love that Desmond Child and keyboard sappy shit. Um, and, but a lot of people don't, especially the classic fans. But, you like what you like. Hell, I know some people who love Hot in the Shade. That was basically an album full of demos, to fulfill the record contract. And then you might say Kiss found their way again with, Revenge, and then, Carnival of Souls. I always say this about Carnival of Souls, it's a great Stone Temple Pilots album. And then, the reunion came and, hit or miss in terms of what you like about the reunion or what you don't like. And Psycho Circus was not really a Kiss album. It was a album with Kevin Valentine on drums and Tommy Thayer on guitar. I think Kiss only played the original Kiss members only played on one song on that album. I think it's "We Are One." Um, but I love that song "Raise Your Glasses," which I don't know if it was a demo for Crazy Nights, but it absolutely sounded like that could have been on Crazy Nights. Why don't they play Strutter? I don't know. You know, uh, I know on some legs of this tour, I've been told they play Crazy Nights, but they didn't. At the show last Friday at the Hollywood Bowl, they didn't. Lambda, Lambda, Lambda coming in late. Um, I don't know why they don't play Strutter. I mean, they have so much material. Well, no, it's all right, Lambda, Lambda. This is a very spur of the moment. I took a nap after yoga, woke up like, "I wanna do another stream." And I knew doing this at 2 in the morning, there were not going to be a lot of listeners, but I'm trying to play with the algorithm. To be honest with you, like I said, I think earlier today on my stream about the wrestling show, um, I like on TikTok, I'll do a TikTok at 3 or 4 in the morning, and I'll have at its peak 3 or 400 followers or listeners. And I'll do one at 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and I'll have 10. So by my, research, TikTok seems to be more for late night stuff, and then YouTube seems to be more daytime, early evening stuff. But I could be wrong, who knows? Um, I mean, that's just Pooter through my, um, research, like, I almost did this stream tonight just out of curiosity. I'm like, "How many people would listen to an hour-long stream at 2 in the morning my time?" Or I guess I started at 1 in the morning, but and, we have 4 people listening, it's not the most tremendous amount, but I'm happy for the 4 is better than 0. Um, I think last week's Dynamite review, I think at its peak, 20 people listening, so, um, I'll take it. Um, I'm kinda new to the streaming on YouTube. I wish I would have done it a lot, earlier, but I didn't, so here I am. So, yeah, Tom, I mean, never say never to me coming to Australia. I hope to play the Melbourne Comedy Festival one day. I am friends with several Australian comics, Tom Ballard and Wayne Deacon. So I hope to meet you at a show one day there. And Pooter, I hope to come back to Edmonton sooner than later. And the hockey jokes are, of course, you guys need some laughs with how the Oilers are playing up there. Woo, 2-8, get out of town. I think they lost to San Jose tonight, that or last night. Um, I think San Jose is like, phew, man, I think they let in 2 games consecutive, 10 goals each. I mean, that's like pretty brutal. That's about it, guys. Oh, you're a Canucks fan. They're pretty good. They score a lot, that's for sure. Um, they're kind of in that in between phase where they're not totally rebuilding, but they're not quite there yet. Like the Kings, and I'm not just saying this because I'm a King fan, but they are seeing the benefits right now of their rebuilding process. I mean, Quentin Byfield's finally playing good after a couple years of like, oh, is this guy going to be a bust? Um, Jordan Spence is playing great. I mean, Jordan Spence is playing so well that our best prospect out of the OHL, Brant Clark, is kind of stuck in Ontario right now because there's just no room for him up in the big roster. I think most people thought Clark would be playing up and Spence would be down because Spence can be sent down and avoid waivers. And another pleasant surprise has been Andreas England. He laid a hit tonight. It was a Scott Stevens style hit on this kid from Pittsburgh. But the Kings have been bad for a while. They won 2 of the 3 cups, and then they were, their big mistake was they were trying to hold on to the core for one more cup run, and just probably was a mistake. And then they started trading off parts and getting draft picks, and it's Kings are going to be good now for the next 5, 6 years. Uh, so Canucks are almost at where the Kings are. Maybe one more year uh, to go before they can start making trades to go for a cup run. But thank you guys for listening. This has been Earl Skakel on all social media. So please, if you can, share this on whatever social media. Oh my God. Oh yes, yes, the great Eddie Ift. Eddie Ift, one of my best friends in stand up. I don't see him too much because we're on different circuits, but he's one of the good ones. And thank you, Tom, for the Tony. I call you Tom. Sorry, it's late for me. My vision gets a little nutty when I am tired. So I apologize. Oh, we got a fifth. Someone joined, and then they didn't. Oh, no problem, Muzzle of Bees. Thank you, Pooter, Tony, Muzzle of Bees, Lambda, 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 and whoever else came in for a second and whatnot. I'm going to try and do this on the regular, but right now, I think I'm trying to play with the algorithm. Like Kevin Brennan, I think the reason why he does so well on YouTube is every 1 p.m., every day at 1 p.m., he's on. Eyes of Rust. Thanks, Earl. Just joined it. Oh, no, it's all good. All good. Um, you never have to apologize. I know it's late or early, um, but uh, I know every online tutorial I've seen on how to get the most numbers on your YouTube stream is do it at the same time every day, or at least if it's not every day, if you just do it once a week, do it Thursdays at 4 p.m. so people get used to it. And yeah, no, 100%. But I think when I'm just starting out with consistency, I'm still unsure of where the sweet spot is for my fan base. Like Kevin has found the sweet spot, 1 p.m. West Coast time, 4 p.m. East Coast time, and I would say he averages 1,000 people. Shuley has found his sweet spot of, I think Shuley does like six. It's like 6 a.m. for me, so 9 a.m. for him in Alabama. Um, so it's just I'm going to. Oh, okay, 7:30, 8:30 p.m. Okay, cool, cool. And it's Friday. It's Saturday night there or Friday night. Um, I used to hang out with an Australian lady friend, and I never understood when to call her. Um, I think you guys are 16 hours ahead of us. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely. Oh, okay, cool. I'm definitely, my friend Jordan. If you are familiar with me, one of my best friends is Jordan Lee, who has the amazing travel vlog, Daze, Daze, with Jordan the Lion. Um, he's given me some tips on tags and how to label the videos to get more views. Uh, so I'm just throwing. To be honest with you, I'm just throwing shit against the wall and hoping something sticks. And I can't do it without you guys. I mean, I can certainly probably talk for an hour on my own, but it does help. When you guys ask me questions, it takes me in another direction. And yes, Lemmy, it was the best. I don't know if you know this or not, Tony, but the owner of the Rainbow, you know, died recently, Michael Magliari. So he was very good friends with Lemmy. So they're all up in heaven having a smoke and a little drink and probably a little yayo. Um, Maybe they're in hell, actually. I don't think God's going to allow, or whatever you believe in. I don't want to get stream sniped, or I don't want my channel reported for talking about religion. Um, so shout out to the Magliari family and condolences. Rainbow is still the last bastion for 80s rock in Los Angeles. Oh, I mean, I'll tell you a quick Lemmy story, and then I probably should go to bed. When I'm calling you Tom instead of Tony, that's a sign I should go to bed. So, and I told this before, but if you haven't heard it, it's a funny story. I used to date one of the co-managers of Motorhead, and I live in West Hollywood. Lemmy lived in West Hollywood, so they would always ask me to check on him when Lemmy would go off the grid every now and then. And Motorhead really made their money on touring. They never really sold a tremendous amount of records. It's not like Metallica. When Metallica, and I'm not talking about streaming. I'm talking about when they actually measured record sales and actual records sold. Um, you know, Metallica will sell 10 to 20 million records. Motorhead would be lucky to sell a couple 100,000, which is a good living, but it's not good enough where they can just, hang out. They got to tour constantly. And their sales and whatnot are bayoued by everyone wants a Motorhead t-shirt because of the logo, the skull logo. I mean, everyone from Justin Bieber to, you know, Morgan Freeman has a Motorhead t-shirt. Um, So one day they're on a European tour because they played like stadiums and festivals in Europe. Like we're in the States, they play like a House of Blues and it would sell out. But in the UK and Germany and Switzerland and Sweden, like they would play 20, 30,000 seat venues. So my girlfriend at the time messages me, "Hey, will you go get Lemmy's mail?" Well, yeah, no problem. Where's the key? Top dresser drawer in the living room. And Lemmy's place, if you've ever seen that documentary with him and Dave Grohl in it, where they're sitting on Lemmy's couch, that documentary does not do Lemmy's um, apartment justice. It was organized chaos. Lemmy had a full-on jungle in his apartment, just trees and plants, and that was half my duty was to go over there and water the plants. Um, but the kitchen was the filthiest fucking kitchen I've ever seen, but yet it was somehow organized. I mean, there were hash browns in the sink from like Lemmy's time as a roadie for Hendrix. So I go in there and I see the dresser drawer. I pull the door open, and probably 50 to 100 naked Polaroids fall all over the floor. And I start panicking. I'm like, "Oh my god, I don't want Lemmy to think I was snooping around." So I'm picking them up pretty fast, jamming them in there, and they were all face down, but one was face up. So I look at it, and it's Lemmy getting a blowjob for some black chick. I was frozen in fear. I was literally like, I couldn't move. I had body paralysis. I was like, I literally was like, so I started looking at the picture, and I see the carpet, and I'm literally standing in the same spot as Lemmy was getting this blowjob. And I got even more like I couldn't move. It was the weird it's like when I had a panic attack the night of my showcase at the Comedy Store. Like, I was frozen in fear, and then I start to look around. First thing that gained movement was my neck, so it's like going like it was like Schwarzenegger scanning for victims in Terminator, and I see 3 camera pods there, and they were all pointing at where I'm standing. So, apparently Lemmy liked to get his dick sucked. I gotta watch my language on YouTube. Uh, right where I was standing, and, I'll give you a couple Lemmy stories because 'cause they're pretty fast. Lemmy used to go to my dentist, Doctor Michael Schneider in Westwood. Westwood's about 15-minute drive from where West Hollywood is. So one morning, Lemmy was getting some major surgery because Lemmy had done so much speed that his bridge would never stay. So they were going on a big European tour, and, let's just say the dentists over in, Europe, they're not exactly known for their work, their technical ability, so, um, I had to pick Lemmy up at, like, 8:30 in the morning, and so we started heading west on Sunset. So if you've been to LA, we're going towards the beach. So think from the Comedy Store to the beach, and Westwood is about a 15-minute drive in between those 2 points. So we're just on Sunset and Doheny. It's so weird how I can remember this like it's literally happening right now. And Lemmy says, "Hey, can you stop off at Turner's Liquor?" Yeah, no problem. I thought maybe he wanted an energy drink or water or something. And Lemmy comes out with these two. I don't have anything to simulate the size. Uh, these two massive beers, like they look like miniature kegs. He cracks both of them open. Now I don't know what the laws like are, Tony in Australia, or Pooter in Edmonton, or Lambda Lambda Lambda. I'm not sure where you're from, or to the other person listening. I see 4 people listening. Um, but the laws with open containers in Los Angeles are hardcore. It's like a major thousands of dollars a fine. And Lemmy hands me a beer. Now I've never had a drink in my life to this day. That's another story. And I'm like, "Oh, Lemmy, I don't drink." And he just looks at me and goes, "You should." And by the time we got to my doctor's office, Lemmy had finished both beers. I'm not saying he was afraid of the dentist, but he was probably doing that to numb the pain. And literally, I went to the dentist at I dropped him off at 8:45, 9 a.m. Picked him up at like 7 p.m. I mean, that's how extensive his dental work was. It wasn't just an hour teeth cleaning, and the whole office smelled like Lemmy. Because Lemmy, he had a bit of a BO problem because I think he had done so much speed, he lost his sense of smell. So let me see. I had one other Lemmy story. Um, oh yeah. So well, it's kind of 2 quick ones, and then I got to go to sleep. Um, when Lemmy passed away, I had broken up with the manager of Motorhead, co-manager, and we hadn't talked for a few years. Wasn't the best breakup, but what breakup is good? But we were cordial, but we weren't overly friendly. So Lemmy dies, and um, my ex and Wendy Dio. were organizing the funeral, and I don't know exactly how they said it, but I think Wendy Dio was like, "Hey, is your ex-boyfriend a metalhead? Like, can you have him be the usher for the funeral?" And so Shelley called me up, and, it wasn't too awkward because she knew I loved Lemmy. I mean, we weren't terribly close, me and Lemmy, but um, I, he was always nice, and so I was the usher at Lemmy's funeral. So I had to seat everyone, and I remember Gene Simmons was in the seventh row, and he wanted to sit in the front row, and I'm like, Gene, I've been told to sit in the seventh row. Of course, he got to sit in the front row. And probably the only, and I feel bad about saying this because the guy's no longer with us, but um, Bob Kulick, Bruce Kulick's brother, he was sitting down with Eric Singer, and Slash came in, with this pretty giant bodyguard, and Bob was sitting in Slash's seat. And I'm a pretty nice guy, and but I'm also kind of a pussy. So I told Bob, "Hey, Bob, you're in Slash's seat. You got to move." And he wouldn't move. He's like, "I knew Lemmy just as much." And luckily, I had known Slash's bodyguard from Equinox, the gym I used to go to at that time. So I said, "Hey, bro, I'll be right back." So Slash is standing there. Everyone's in a cool mood except for Bob, to be honest with you. And I run back, and Shelley could be a real bitch when she had to be, because the music industry is it's a male dominated world, and so I think if you're a woman in it, you kind of have to be a bitch to stand up to the guys. So I said, "Hey, Shelley, Slash is here, and Bob Kulick's in his seat, and he won't get up, and I don't know what to do." And Shelley kind of stormed out of the office at where we were at, the Forest Lawn, which is where they have a lot of the celebrity funerals and services and memorials. And let's just say Bob Kulick got up. And but the cool part was, so after the service, and it was a great service. Triple H, the wrestler, told a really funny story because Triple H was very cool. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of him for how he treated Sting, my favorite wrestler, but Triple H made Motorhead a lot of money because he would have them do his theme music, which is big selling. If you can get a song on one of those WWE compilation CDs, that band will make a lot of money, or a decent amount of money. And so after the service, and Rob Halford had a great story, and Dave Grohl had a great story. So we go to Lemmy's final resting place, and it's just my girlfriend, her managing partner, me, Dave Grohl, and maybe one or two other people. I don't remember who. And if you ever go to Forest Lawn Cemetery, Lemmy's gravesite is staring right straight ahead to Dio's gravesite, which is kind of cool. And Dio's gravesite's unbelievable. It's like his whole headstone is like a stage, and they had to get permission from the cemetery because they have the devil horns on the sides, and they're looking right at each other. And so we're paying our final respects to Lemmy and Dave Grohl, and he would never remember this, but I do. He put his hand on my shoulder, and he's just crying uncontrollably. So I hugged him, and then it's the last time I've seen him. So the next, and maybe it wasn't the next day, but a couple days later, maybe a week later, um, Shelley knew I knew the layout of Lemmy's apartment, and it's like, "Hey, if you want to take any of his T-shirts, you can." And because Lemmy had this amazing collection of T-shirts that he would wear on stage, they were all cut the same way, no neck, and the sleeves cut off. And I think I took maybe 3 or 4 shirts. He had a cool Ramones shirt. He had a Cycle Sluts from Hell shirt, and a couple cool Motorhead shirts. and they smelled so bad because it was like literally now I'm sure Lemmy, well, he didn't do laundry, but someone did it for him. But like these fucking shirts stunk. I washed them 3 times. Didn't help. I had to get the t-shirts dry cleaned because they smelled so bad. And I remember dropping them off at the dry cleaners, and I go to the same dry cleaner I've always gone to, and the guy is this old, like, Persian guy. He just looks at me and goes, "What are these, man? Because they stink." I said, "Dude, I don't care what you guys use to dry clean, put double." And like I said, his smell was pretty ripe, to be honest with you. So when I took him to the dentist that day, and drove him back that night, so he was probably in my car maybe 30 to 40 minutes total. I had to get my car detailed twice. So I don't know what girl would, touch his pee-pee down there, but man, they must have had no sense of smell either. Hello. So thank you guys. This is one of the coolest things. I've been doing comedy 23 years, made a few bucks at it, but still the coolest thing I've ever been paid with. It's not thousands of dollars, but the official one of one Earl Skakel wrestling doll that I got from Ric Flair roast. So that's all, guys. Thank you for listening. I'm probably not going to do too many in this time slot because I think I had 0 listeners for like the first half hour. So, but who knows? I might. Um, I think you and me, Pooter, are on the same time slot. Each other. I'm not sure. I'll always just assume East Coast because I don't know who the hell's up the West Coast at this time. And I think this weekend I might put a 46, 47 minute set of my stand up set from the other night at the Comedy Store. So be on the lookout for that. And thank you guys very much. It's been an hour and a half, not too bad. And I do appreciate it. Pooter, you were with me from minute one, I believe. And Tony and everyone else who listened, thank you very much. I really am this gracious, um, because I realize, I just took an hour and a half of your time, and I got off not a great start tonight. When this is why I don't go on Reddit. I rarely read comments on Twitter. Muzzle of bees, yes, but someone. I judged a roast battle on Tuesday between my friends Chad and Ray, and I honestly thought it was a draw. No big deal. Nobody cares about who wins a roast battle. And literally, this guy tonight, and one of the replies on Twitter was like, "You fucking suck. You're this. You're that. I hope you get blood cancer." Like that's insane that someone out there would be so hateful and so. I mean, that's mental unbalance. To sit, you can think I'm not funny. That's fine. No one's no comic on earth is ever gonna get 100% approval. But to sit there and not just wish cancer on someone, but probably the worst kind of cancer, blood cancer. I mean, that's I've known people who've done it or who've gotten it. You don't survive, and it's a very fast downfall. So, thank you guys. I almost did this stream more for me than I did for you guys, to be honest, because that comment really bummed me out. Um, and I know it's online, and the guy was probably trolling me, but damn. So I feel actually a lot better. So I really do mean it when I say thank you. Earl Skakel, over and out.